This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather and Connie Chung.
And this is John Roberts reporting. Dan and Connie have the night off. The White House was the backdrop for another breakthrough today in the Middle East peace process. The leaders of Israel and Jordan made history, declaring an end to their long state of war. White House correspondent Rita Braver reports.
Another historic handshake. And though Prime Minister Rabin's White House meeting with King Hussein may have lacked the high drama of last fall's breakthrough with PLO chief Yasser Arafat, it did mark the true possibility of a comprehensive Mideast peace.
History is made when brave leaders find the power to escape the past and create a new future.
Out of all the days of my life, I do not believe that there is one such as this.
And meanwhile, Your Majesty, the entire state of Israel is shaking your hand.
The three leaders put the finishing touches on the Washington Declaration. Israel and Jordan promised not to use force against each other and to block terrorism. They'll open direct telephone links and border crossings. Jordan has promised to negotiate an end to its economic boycott of Israel, and Israel promised to consider giving Jordan some control of the Muslim holy shrines in Jerusalem, though that could upset other Arab powers. It was not called a peace treaty, but
what we are committed to is the end of the state of war between Jordan and Israel.
Prime Minister Rabin wanted to remember those who have fallen in war between the two nations.
And to tell children on both sides of the border, we hope and pray that your life will be different than ours.
For President Clinton, whose foreign policy has taken a lot of hits of late, today was a welcome chance to preside over a big success, especially while struggles with Whitewater and health care dominate the domestic agenda. Rita Braver, CBS News at the White House.
The much-delayed congressional hearings on Whitewater finally begin tomorrow. Lloyd Cutler, the White House counsel, will be the lead-off witness before the House Banking Committee. And a key question will be how much administration officials knew about a government investigation of an Arkansas savings and loan and a failed real estate venture. CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer has the latest.
Technicians were already at work today making arrangements for tomorrow's first round of televised hearings. It's not the Whitewater land deal the Clintons invested in while he was governor that's at issue. It's whether administration officials, many of them old friends of the president, like Deputy Treasury Secretary Roger Altman, tipped off the White House when they found out federal regulators were considering a criminal probe of Whitewater. The new White House counsel signaled the White House defense yesterday.
There were some regrettable errors of judgment, and that, looking at it in retrospect, perhaps too many people were involved in these.
But Cutler says nothing illegal was done. Even so, it will be an embarrassing week at best for an already beleaguered White House. Example, Treasury Secretary Lloyd Benson has said publicly he knew of no investigations. But Gene Hansen, the department's general counsel, has apparently disputed that to congressional investigators. Altman, Benson's deputy, has already changed previous congressional testimony about who he talked to and when 4 times. And even more embarrassing, new reports, a diary kept by Treasury aide Josh Steiner, shows that when Altman tried to step aside as the official federal regulators reported to, White House aides sent word the president wanted him to stay involved to keep any Whitewater probe under control of a Clinton friend.
So I think it's going to go down as a classic in how political figures should not handle scandal itself.
However, it finally goes down. The embattled Altman denied all wrongdoing today, and the president said he had done an excellent job and ought to stay on. The Republicans here will be a much harder sell. Bob Schieffer, CBS News at the Capitol.
The hearing getting most of America's attention today was not on Capitol Hill, but in a Los Angeles courtroom. The prosecution and the defense in the O.J. Simpson case argued over access to blood evidence. The science got so complicated that at one point the judge admitted, quote, "I have no idea what we're talking about." Correspondent Bill Whitaker has our report.
The biggest murder case in recent memory got bogged down today over the tiniest bits of evidence, DNA. The defense asked the court for blood samples from the crime scenes to conduct its own independent DNA tests.
The only fair way for blood testing to be done is for each side to be able to share the samples that have been recovered.
But prosecutors argued they can't give any away until their own tests are completed.
There should be nothing placed in the way of such testing that is so critical to the fair trial and the rights of both the defendant and the people.
Both sides hope DNA testing, often called genetic fingerprinting, will prove Simpson's guilt or innocence. The defense wants portions of the blood found at Nicole Brown Simpson's condo and at Simpson's estate to perform a polymerase chain reaction test, or PCR. It's a relatively simple test to identify an individual's unique genetic code. It requires only a pinpoint of blood and can be done in a week, but it's often inconclusive. The prosecution says it needs to save the evidence for a more exhaustive test, the restriction fragment length polymorphism. The RFLP needs up to 200 times more specimen than the PCR and takes about 6 weeks, but it's far more accurate. The defense scoffed at prosecutor Marsha Clark's suggestion that it could have what, if any, sample was left over.
And I think their presentation is hypocritical at best.
His first day on the job, Judge Lance Ito tried to come up with a Solomon-like compromise, give the defense 10% of the sample. But prosecutor Clark made an impassioned plea for him to reconsider.
The court is effectively taking evidence out of our hands and giving it to the defense, and that will prevent us from ever having the opportunity to perform that test, period.
In the end, Judge Ito decided to put off any final decision until after he hears from DNA experts. Also left unresolved today, a defense request for all evidence that points away from O.J. Simpson and an actual date for this trial to begin. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, the latest from Zaire and American efforts to provide a ray of hope. Plus, Eye on America. Tonight, stores that eavesdrop on their employees and their customers. A U.S. military airlift is underway for Rwandan refugees in Zaire, but tonight it is still losing a race with death. A cholera epidemic remains out of control among the millions of refugees, and the relief effort has been stalled by bottlenecks on the ground. We caution sensitive viewers may find these pictures too graphic to watch. Correspondent Dr. Bob Arnott begins our report from the border camps in Zaire.
120,000 refugees stood in line for lunch at the Kabumba camp. Some scrambled with a few beans spilled on the grass, while others lurked, waiting for a chance to steal what they could.
The major problem now is actually not food. It's certainly water, sanitation and diseases, and all these dead bodies.
Beside the road, there are more bodies than ever. A grim welcome for American forces. These are the first U.S. soldiers to venture into the camps and witness the grim cholera epidemic, which could kill 100,000. The first of 4,000 troops, the Pentagon says, are now on the way, are looking for a solution.
Once you can control where people are eating, drinking, and defecating, and they're all separate, we can stop a lot of the diarrheal diseases.
At Lake Kivu, Americans identified the major source of water for the camps, but it is badly contaminated, dead bodies on its shore. From this single site, how much water do you think you'll be able to process and get up the road?
The equipment we have coming in initially will be able to draw and process 1,200 gallons per hour.
Despite building chaos at the Goma airport, a giant American C-5 arrived late tonight with a badly needed water purifier. Although it can supply each refugee only half a cup a day, it is a small start for a massive American airlift that races against the giant shadow of death. The cholera epidemic has now killed 14,000 refugees. Mass graveyards like this one are full. The United Nations announced tonight that people are dying so quickly that it will begin burning the dead. Dr. Bob Arnott, CBS News, Goma, Zaire.
The United Nations says up to 250,000 children have died in the Rwandan conflict. Another 150,000 have been separated from their parents. Thousands of them have ended up as refugees in Zaire. Correspondent Barry Peterson reports on the littlest and the lost.
They chose no sides in the war. They don't even understand why they are here. They only know an instinct to survive. When you've been here long enough in this place to have even lost count of how many bodies you have seen, you think you've seen it all, but you haven't. This is called Indosho, but you will remember it as the city of orphans. A city of more than 4,000 where the weak stare and see nothing, and set apart the growing numbers of sick.
And we don't want to mix them with the crowd.
Because they're still contagious? They could affect the children?
Yes, and very often we don't know whether it's cholera or it's just malnutrition or just hunger.
At first, only a few died each day. Now, it's dozens. Nemet Lalani is the only doctor. She and a few nurses are fighting this battle alone, and they are losing out to despair.
Alone? What do you want me to do? Which one shall I choose? But alone I can't do anything. I can't do miracles.
How do the children cope with all of this?
I don't know. We don't even have time to ask them what they feel, what are their desires. We don't have time, and they die. So they go on with their ideas.
There are so many sick that they die alone. No one even knows their names. The living suffer too. 8-year-old Aresta had to identify the body of his brother in a morgue so full they could hardly pull the door shut. And these are the most defenseless, some only a week old, born during the refugee exodus. Without doctors and medicine, half will die. Is there hope for them?
I don't know. Just God will tell you. Will tell us. I don't know.
It will haunt you forever, the desperate crying, looking into their eyes, knowing that not even the innocence of childhood will be enough to save them. Barry Peterson, CBS News, in the city of orphans.
Exxon Corporation has settled one of the lawsuits stemming from the Valdez oil spill. Exxon agreed today to pay Alaskan natives $20 million for destroying some of their traditional food sources, such as seals, kelp, and fish. The settlement still needs the approval of a federal judge. Hillary Rodham Clinton could find herself in court soon to testify about the health care working group she headed last year. A federal judge today ordered a trial to decide if the group must make thousands of documents public. Working behind closed doors, the 500-member group made recommendations to President Clinton about health care reform. The First Lady has been on the road trying to sell the public on health care reform. And as correspondent Linda Douglas reports, a lot of the traveling has been uphill.
Hoping to ignite some grassroots support, members of the president's cabinet today announced they will join the health care bus tour that is moving slowly across the nation.
It's time to get on the bus, Gus.
The bus tour has had a bumpy start. At one kickoff rally, protesters tried to shout down Hillary Clinton. Over the next week, the buses will crisscross the nation, carrying ordinary people who've had problems with the health care system. When they join the tour, the cabinet members will try to breathe new life into an idea that faces stiff opposition in Congress, requiring employers to pay a portion of health insurance. They say that's the only way to pay for health care for everyone.
Employers have a responsibility. Employers have a major responsibility here.
Congressional leaders are not optimistic about passing health care legislation that is financed by the so-called employer mandate. In fact, they concede the best they can hope for is a bill that might phase in universal coverage over several years.
I think somewhere between 4 and 8 years is the range within which the discussions are now taking place.
One bipartisan group of senators is pushing a health care plan that would expand coverage without requiring employers to pay. Sources say a new budget report will show that plan could cover up to 92% of the population, which many senators will argue is good enough. Linda Douglas, CBS News, Washington.
The housing industry is feeling the effects of rising mortgage interest rates. America's realtors say sales of used homes in June were down more than 3.5%. Right now, the average interest rate for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is about 8.5%. Fears of higher interest rates are still weighing heavily on Wall Street, but the Dow still managed to pick up about 7 points. Stores have been using video surveillance cameras for many years now to discourage thieves or catch them in the act. Now some stores are taking the next step with audio surveillance, hidden microphones. But is this latest attempt to prevent theft actually robbing customers and employees of their right to privacy? That is tonight's Eye on America, reported by correspondent Bob Faw.
Here, the donut machines weren't the only things operating round the clock. Microphones stuck up there in the vents where no one could see them. Microphones recorded everything, customers like Andy Vavel said.
It's just like having a peephole in a dressing room, isn't it? You're listening, you're seeing something you're not supposed to see.
Did Dunkin' Donuts employees listen in for juicy bits customers spilled over their crullers? You better believe they did, says ex-Dunkin' Donuts waitress Tammy O'Neill.
Several occasions, I watched the manager of the store listen in on people's private conversations.
The manager denies the charges, which she says a bitter Tammy made up because she was fired. But Tammy insists she saw the manager eavesdrop on customers hundreds of times.
If she saw someone come into the store while she was there that she didn't particularly like, she would go in the back room and turn up the volume and listen to what they had to say.
Stung by criticism, Dunkin' Donuts would not talk on camera about its microphones, which it has now ordered removed, even though store owners like Jerry Romanzi say there is less to this ruckus than meets the eye.
I could never hear the conversation between a customer and an employee. It's impossible. I can't hear it.
This, say fast food and convenience store owners, is why we need to look and listen, to discourage robbers and to keep employees from dipping into the till. We tell customers about the mics, and we put them only over cash registers, says Roy Rogers security consultant Michael Arrighi.
Our position is you can never have enough compelling evidence to convict somebody.
Picture's good, voice is even better.
Absolutely.
But security expert Charles Carroll says store owners who install microphones are overreacting.
I don't really think there's a legitimate application for audio. You can accomplish the same thing from video. When you put that audio on there, to me, it's a violation of the right to privacy.
And the American Civil Liberties Union, Louis Maltby, agrees that store owners have gone too far.
Certainly a restaurant owner has a right to make sure that the employees or the customers are not stealing from them. But you don't have to bug the entire restaurant every day of the year to prevent that kind of improper behavior.
So the issue comes down to whose interests matter most, businesses with a legitimate worry about crime or customers who expect that conversations they have in places like this will be private. And for every episode like this, which store owners say microphones help prevent, for all the arguments that the microphones cannot pick up every conversation, Tammy O'Neill has the same response.
People have a right to privacy. We're in America. This is our right to be able to talk about business, talk about anything without someone listening in. I think we all deserve that.
Until that's guaranteed, just remember the next time you go looking for fast food, that ceiling might have ears. In Manchester, New Hampshire, this is Bob Fall for Eye on America.
And coming up next on the CBS Evening News, peacemaking Middle Eastern style, the story behind another historic handshake on the White House lawn. Today's agreement between Israel and Jordan was another milestone on the long road to peace in the Middle East. It was the first public meeting ever between Jordan's King Hussein and Israeli Prime Minister Rabin. But as veteran Middle East correspondent Bob Simon reports, those two leaders go back a long way.
The warmth at the White House was not entirely due to the sweltering Washington weather. These two men, these two nations have been waiting to make peace for a long time, waiting for the right moment, which was today. Ever since the 1967 war, there has been more cooperation than conflict between Israel and Jordan, even collusion. In September 1970, when King Hussein waged war on Yasser Arafat, Israel mobilized its army to discourage the Syrians from helping the PLO. And in 1973, King Hussein made a secret trip to Tel Aviv, drove down this street with Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir to warn her that Egypt and Syria were planning the Yom Kippur War. Now the cooperation has come out of the closet. As always in the Middle East, their common interest sprung from a common enemy, Palestinians. Palestinian aspirations for statehood, Palestinian claims on Jerusalem. That's why PLO leaders today were less than enthusiastic about that tender handshake in Washington.
Any discussion in Jerusalem should be aimed at reasserting Palestinian rights in Jerusalem.
Jordan will recover land and water rights from Israel, and Israelis, they sent balloons across barbed wire into Jordan today. Israelis are delighted. Businessmen especially are ready to take off.
It is creating the smell of peace, which is the perfume of the economy, and it is infiltrating into the nostrils of every government.
Of Israel's ancient enemies, only the Syrians are still at war. But officials here are confident tonight that they too will come around, because now they've got nowhere else to go. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Coming up tomorrow on CBS This Morning, Harry Smith reports live from Quincy, Illinois, 1 year after the great floods of '93. I'm John Roberts in New York. Dan Rather will be back tomorrow. For all of us here at CBS News, good night.
Experience CBS News.
The CBS Evening News isn't just a place where the world comes together.
It's a place where all of our worlds come together.
Somalia, Bosnia.
Healthcare, the economy.
Stories such as flood or the hurricane.
And sometimes, even a moment
that lets us all sit back and smile.
This is CBS.
Attention all stations concerned. There will be an update of the CBS Evening News.
Backdrop for another breakthrough today.